Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We use our minds every single day, but I don't know if we always realize
Right.
how much power is really there, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what we're diving into today, the potential of our minds.
I will love it.
And we've got a real interesting mix of sources today. We've got self-help guides,
Cool.
philosophy,
Interesting.
even a little snippet from a religious pamphlet.
Wow.
You wouldn't think they'd have much in common, but they all
Wow.
kind of converge on this idea of personal power.
It is fascinating to see how all these different perspectives across time and different disciplines really seem to agree. Like there's this incredible power within each of us just waiting to be tapped into.
It's like we all have this potential that's just waiting to be unlocked. And we're going to uncover some pretty surprising advice along the way. I'm talking repeating affirmations like thousands of times a day, the importance of what some people call subjective thought.
Interesting.
And even something called a magnetic body. What is that? Yeah, I'm intrigued. The goal here is really to help you understand all these core concepts.
Right.
But even more importantly, to kind of see if any of these ideas resonate with you and how you might apply them in your own life.
That's what I love about these deep dives is we get to kind of dig in and take these nuggets of wisdom and apply them.
Totally.
Okay, so let's dive in. Our first stop is Christian Larson's book, Your Forces and How to Use Them.
I like it.
Now, Larson really stresses this idea of cultivating a strong individuality as like the foundation for personal power. He even says, quote, "It is the individuality that initiates, that controls or directs. Therefore, to control and use a force in your own system."
You must understand and develop individuality.
He's not just talking about like being different for the sake of being different. He's saying like to truly harness your inner power, you need to understand your unique strengths, weaknesses, and perspective. You know, it's interesting how much time we spend trying to fit into molds that don't really quite suit us.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I know I've definitely been guilty of that myself.
It happens to all of us.
Yeah.
But Larson really suggests we could achieve so much more if we just embraced our individuality and directed our energy towards goals that genuinely resonate with who we are at our core.
Like our true selves.
Yeah, our true selves. Exactly.
So individuality is like the key that unlocks our personal power.
Yes, it's like this foundation. And he takes that idea a step further with this concept of scientific thinking. Yeah. Essentially what he's talking about here is like consistently directing your mental energy towards a specific goal. Like as opposed to what he calls scattered thinking. Where our minds kind of flit from one thought to the next. Without any real focus.
I know that one all too well.
Right.
It's like having a million tabs open in your brain.
It's like our brain is a web browser with a million tabs open.
Exactly.
But Larson would say that kind of scattered thinking is actually draining our mental energy.
Yeah.
Instead, he advises us to cultivate a building desire for what we want. To expand our ideas and to fuel our actions with ambition.
So it's not just about having a goal. It's about like that burning desire that
fire in your belt.
Keeps you focused.
Yeah, that keeps you going. You got it.
Okay.
And this is where I think things get really interesting. Larson believed in this incredible power of the subconscious mind.
Not just to remove negative conditions, but to actively manifest positive ones.
Okay, now
I know it.
You've got my attention. Tell me more about this subconscious mind power.
Larson suggests that we need to deeply desire specific conditions and have a clear mental picture of what we want.
I like it.
But here's a key insight. Instead of aiming for a fixed amount of something, like, say, money or success or even health, we should actually focus on continual improvement.
Continual improvement.
Yeah, so don't put a limit on what you desire. Always strive for more, for better.
I like it.
It's a really powerful shift in perspective.
It is.
So by aiming for this ongoing progress, you keep your subconscious mind engaged and working towards expansion.
It's like setting your sights on the horizon.
Yes.
There's always something more.
There's always something more.
To discover, to achieve.
To achieve. So how do we tap into this subconscious power?
Okay, well.
Larson suggests repeating affirmations 1,000 times a day.
1,000 times. That's dedication.
I know.
But the idea here is that through this consistent repetition, you're essentially reprogramming your subconscious mind and strengthening your will to bring about the desired outcome.
It's like what they say, what you think you become.
Exactly. And this idea of the power of focused intention. It's not just unique to Larson. We actually see a similar concept in hidden power, which states that focused thought can, quote, send forth our thought to produce any effect we will.
So it's about harnessing the energy of our thoughts and directing them.
Directing them you want to create.
Towards what we want to create. Absolutely. And that brings us to another really fascinating concept.
That Larson, along with another author named William Walker Atkinson, who often wrote under the pen name Frank C. Haddock, explored, and that's personal magnetism.
Personal magnetism.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds intriguing.
It's really cool.
What exactly does that mean?
So both Larson and Haddock believed that personal magnetism was this really powerful force that could attract success and influence others.
Interesting.
But Haddock's take on it is a little bit more, I'd say, technical. He digs into how personal magnetism arises from the body's vibrations and something he called etheric corpuscle forms.
Etheric corpuscle forms.
You know, it's a mouthful. It's a bit of a technical term.
Complicated for me. Can you break that down?
Yeah, so he uses some pretty technical language, but essentially what he's suggesting is that our thoughts and feelings create vibrations that impact our physical bodies and the world around us. You know, think of it like dropping a pebble in a pond. Those ripples spread outward. In a similar way, Haddock believed our thoughts and emotions create these ripples of energy that affect our reality.
So it's not just a mystical energy. There's a real,
there's a real vibrational component to it. Absolutely. And he believed that we could intentionally cultivate different types of magnetism through focused willpower.
So it's not just about being born charismatic.
It's not just about being born with it.
You can actually develop this.
You can develop it.
Interesting.
That's the idea. And he really emphasizes the importance of courage and confidence, particularly for overcoming past mistakes and building a successful future.
So how do we cultivate these qualities?
So he suggests two main approaches. First, visualize yourself as already possessing those qualities. And second, cultivate a strong sense of inner mental energy.
So it's a combination of mindset, believing in yourself, and then taking action.
Exactly. It's about aligning your inner world with your outer actions.
I like it.
And that actually ties in with his concept of the magnetic body, right?
The magnetic body.
He believed that this magnetic body is something that we build through physical exercises.
Wait, are we talking about actual physical exercises?
What, hitting the gym?
Hitting the gym.
To boost your magnetism? Well, he did suggest specific physical exercises, like hand clenching and controlled breathing as techniques for cultivating magnetism. But it wasn't just about the physical movements themselves. Haddock believed that these exercises strengthened the willpower and focus needed to direct mental energy.
So it's more about training your mind and body to kind of...
It's about that mind-body connection.
Work together.
Exactly. Creating this synergy between your inner and outer self.
It reminds me of Larson's idea of scientific thinking. It's all about focusing our mental energy in a deliberate way.
You're right. There's definitely a connection there. And Haddock took this even further. He suggested that psychic magnetism operates through the ether and can be intentionally developed and regulated.
Wow.
Right.
This is getting really...
pretty wild.
Interesting. So I'm starting to see how all these ideas connect. It's like cultivating this strong sense of self. Focusing our thoughts and harnessing this inner power. To achieve our goals. And now we're going to shift gears a bit. And explore a source that adds a whole new dimension to this conversation. And that's love. Specifically, Science of Love by A.S. Trode.
Love,
Love.
I'm curious. I'm curious to see how that love
ties into all this.
Fits into this whole conversation.
So this is where we encounter a really complex and perhaps surprisingly paradoxical view of love and its role in our development, especially on a spiritual level. So Trode introduces this idea of duality, of these seemingly opposite forces being interconnected.
So even though things might appear opposite,
yes,
they're actually...
two sides of the same coin.
Two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this idea of duality leads us to this really fascinating concept of the Holy Family.
Holy Family.
Yes, as presented in Science of Love. Now, I know Holy Family might sound a little bit, I don't know, traditional.
It does sound a little...
A traditional religion.
Traditional. Okay.
But in this context, it's not about a traditional family unit at all.
Okay.
It's really a symbolic representation of different aspects of our consciousness.
So what kinds of aspects are we talking about here?
So think of concepts like father, mother, husband, wife. These aren't meant to be taken literally, but they really represent different parts of ourselves that need to be integrated in order for us to achieve wholeness.
So it's like an inner balance.
It's an inner balance.
It has different energies or qualities.
Yes, and that integration, that inner wholeness, is actually symbolized by the holy marriage.
Holy marriage, yeah.
It's about the union of the soul and spirit within us and the mind and body without.
Okay, so how does this relate?
So this is where it gets really interesting. Science of Love dives into this really complex relationship between sex and spirituality.
Okay, this is a little unexpected.
It's a little unexpected, right?
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah. So Troward presents the idea that sexual love, while necessary for physical reproduction, ultimately leads to
a sense of separation from a higher power, from God.
Wow. That's a pretty
big statement, right?
Bold statement.
Yeah. But it's important to remember that Troward is presenting a very specific spiritual framework. And within that framework, sexual love is viewed in this way. Okay, so he contrasts sexual love with this concept of divine love and what he calls the woman-Christ principle.
Okay, woman-Christ principle.
I know, right? Another one.
That one definitely needs explaining.
Think of it as this force that leads to spiritual regeneration and a higher form of reproduction. Not on a physical level, but on a spiritual one.
So we've got these two distinct forms of love.
Two distinct forms of love.
Each with its own
purpose.
Purpose and consequence.
And consequences, exactly. And to illustrate this even further, Science of Love uses this really interesting symbolism of two trees. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Right, like the...
Yeah, like in the Garden of Eden.
Garden of Eden.
And the tree of life. So eating from the tree of knowledge, which in this context is associated with sexual love, keeps us kind of trapped in this cycle of physical death and rebirth. The tree of life, on the other hand, represents spiritual knowledge and a kind of immortality achieved through divine love.
So it's almost like we're choosing which tree to eat from.
Which tree to eat from.
With our actions and the type of love that we cultivate.
That's a really powerful way to put it. And this brings us to another really intriguing concept in Science of Love. And that's the concept of virgin birth.
Virgin birth. Okay, I have to admit, I'm not really sure how that fits in here.
So remember,
we're talking about symbolism here.
Okay.
In this context, virgin birth represents spiritual regeneration and the birth of what's called the Christ self within each of us. It's about consciously choosing to overcome those desires that keep us rooted in the material world and achieving a state of purity that allows for spiritual...
So it's not a literal birth.
Not a literal birth.
But it's a metaphorical...
Transformation.
Transformation, exactly. A spiritual rebirth. A movement towards a higher state of being.
I'm starting to get a little bit more.
So this idea of spiritual transformation is very closely connected to this concept of the baptism of the Holy Spirit, which we actually encountered in another one of our sources.
Tell me about this baptism.
So this concept comes...
of the Holy Spirit.
From the teachings of unity. Which places a strong emphasis on this baptism of the Holy Spirit as the path to spiritual unity.
And forgiveness or the remission of sins.
So it's about achieving this oneness with a higher power.
With a higher power, yes. And this idea of spiritual unity actually ties back to the concept of the Holy Family. That integration of different aspects of consciousness within ourselves.
That we talked about earlier.
My
mind is spinning a little bit, trying to keep track of
all this straight. But I think what's really amazing is that we're starting to see this thread of personal power woven through all these different sources.
That's all connected somehow.
It's about spiritual growth, achieving unity with a higher power, and tapping into our inner potential.
It's like they're offering these different pieces of the puzzle.
Pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, and it's up to us
to
figure out
how they fit together, how it all goes together.
Yeah, totally. And to add another piece to that puzzle, we need to talk about the importance of the word as a creative force. Now, this concept appears throughout our sources. But it's really central to the work of Florence Scovel Shinn.
Oh, yes, Flory.
Flory.
Your word is your wand.
Exactly.
I'm very familiar with it.
I love her work on affirmations.
Her work on affirmations.
She emphasizes this power of words to shape reality and to attract the outcomes that we desire.
Like speaking our
desires into existence. It's not just wishful thinking. She provides specific affirmations for attracting abundance, success, and even healing.
So our words have a real, tangible impact on our lives.
Absolutely.
Wow, this has been
an
incredible.
It covered so much.
Deep dive so far. So many fascinating ideas about the power of the mind and how to unlock our potential. But we're just
getting started. Yeah.
I'm just amazed how all these sources, even though they come from such different backgrounds, they're all kind of pointing to this incredible power we have within ourselves. It's really empowering.
It is empowering,
to think that we have more control than we often think we do.
More than we think.
And it reminds me of another one of Haddock's ideas. The idea that we exist in a storm of vibrations.
A storm of vibrations. Okay.
I don't know if I'd want to be caught in that.
It sounds a little intense.
It does sound a little intense.
Yeah. The good news is Haddock believes that we can actually learn to navigate this storm and even use it to our advantage. He suggests that we can consciously direct these vibrations towards positive outcomes.
So instead of being tossed around by all this chaos?
Instead of being a victim of the storm, we can learn to harness that energy.
And shape it to our will.
To our will.
Okay.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And it brings us back to that connection between our thoughts, our energy, and our experiences of the physical world.
Yeah, it all ties together. And, we see this idea of conscious creation reflected in science of love as well, especially with its emphasis on the word as a creative force.
I have to admit, I'm still a little skeptical about some of those physical exercises Haddock recommends.
Oh, yeah. Which ones?
For cultivating magnetism.
Okay.
Like the hand clenching and the controlled breathing.
Yeah.
It just seems a little...
I can understand.
Their skepticism.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that Haddock really believed in this very deep connection between the physical and the psychic.
Okay.
He saw these exercises as a way to strengthen our willpower and the mental focus needed to direct our energy.
So it's not just about
it's not just about
flexing your muscles.
It's about building that.
It's about the inner
strength and discipline.
Exactly. It's about training your mind and body to work in harmony. Think about it this way.
Okay.
If you want to run a marathon, you need to train both physically and mentally. You need to build your endurance. And you need to practice focusing your mind.
That's a good analogy. It reminds me of Larson's idea of scientific thinking. It's all about consistency.
It is.
And that deliberate effort.
You got it. So whether we're talking about achieving success in the material world or making progress on our spiritual path, it really requires that conscious and sustained effort to direct our energy towards what we want to create.
It's about aligning our thoughts, our words, our actions with our desires. It's not just wishful thinking.
No. It's
about really taking action.
Taking action.
Yes. And creating that resonance, that alignment between our inner and outer worlds.
That's where the magic happens.
So that's where the magic happens?
thinking about all this, I'm starting to see personal magnetism, not just as something that attracts success or influences others, but almost like a way to attract experiences that are truly aligned with our most authentic selves.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about becoming more fully who we're meant to be.
Both internally and externally.
And it brings us back to Larson's idea of cultivating a strong and distinct individuality.
It all connects. You know, it's about recognizing that each of us has this unique contribution to make to the world. And that contribution flows from our individuality.
Now, I want to circle back to Science of Love for a moment.
Okay.
I'm still struggling a little bit with this idea that sexual love leads to separation from God. It seems kind of contradictory to how
I hear you.
Love is often
it's a challenging concept.
Portrayed, right.
It is.
Like we often associate love with connection, with unity.
We do. We do. Right. Yeah, but remember, Science of Love is presenting a specific spiritual framework. And within that framework, sexual love is viewed as a force that keeps us bound to the physical realm. It perpetuates this cycle of death and rebirth.
So it's not about like condemning sexual love outright.
It's not about condemning it.
It's about understanding.
It's about its place within this larger context.
Larger context, exactly. It's about recognizing that there are different forms of love, each with its own purpose and consequences. Think about it like this. You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb, would you?
No, that would be a mess.
That would be a mess. Different tools for different jobs.
I like it.
Right. So within this spiritual framework, divine love is seen as the path to a different kind of connection, a spiritual unity and liberation.
It's about moving beyond the limitations of the ego and connecting with something greater.
Something greater than ourselves. Yes. And, you know, I think the symbolic imagery in Science of Love is really helpful for understanding this. Those two trees, the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, they represent a choice, a fork in the road. One path leads to this continued identification with the material world, while the other leads to a spiritual awakening.
And the virgin birth idea, as we talked about, symbolizes that spiritual transformation.
Exactly, that birth of the Christ self within us. It's about consciously choosing that path of spiritual growth.
Moving towards a higher
state of being. Yes.
Yeah, and ultimately that choice, that conscious intention is what all of these sources are guiding us towards.
They are. They're urging us to tap into that power we have within and use it to create lives that reflect our highest potential. Both individually and spiritually.
This
has been a whirlwind of ideas.
I know, it's a lot.
So much to think about.
We've covered so much.
So much to process.
But, you know, that's the beauty of these concepts. They invite us to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep growing.
And maybe that's a good place to shift our focus a little bit.
We've
been talking about these really big abstract concepts.
Big ideas.
But I want to talk about how these ideas can be applied in a practical sense.
I like where your head's at.
In everyday life.
Let's dive into some specific examples. Remember Florey's work with affirmations?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a good place to start.
It's like she gives you this recipe book.
I love that.
For using the power of words to create change.
To create positive change. You know, it's interesting to consider how affirmations actually work on multiple levels. You know, they help to reprogram those subconscious patterns we talked about earlier. But they also kind of send out a powerful vibration into the universe.
So we're aligning our inner and outer
worlds, aligning our inner and outer worlds.
Through the words.
Through the words we speak.
We choose to speak.
And that actually brings to mind Haddock's concept of demand attitudes.
Demand attitudes.
That sounds a little bold, right?
It's a little bold, yeah.
But he believed that by cultivating a certain mental attitude, this sense of confident expectation, we could magnetically attract what we desire.
Okay, so tell me more about.
So he suggests assuming specific physical postures, and mentally projecting this image of yourself already possessing the qualities or things you want to attract. It's almost like
acting as if.
Acting as if you already have what you desire.
You're embodying the energy.
Embodying the energy.
Of what you want to attract.
Yeah, not
just wishing for it.
Wishing for it.
But feeling it, believing it. Exactly. And that actually ties back to the idea of the magnetic body we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
You know, Haddock believed that through mental discipline and these physical practices, we could cultivate a magnetic presence that would naturally draw to us the experiences and opportunities aligned with our desires.
We become a magnet. For what we truly want. You know, one thing that really resonates with me from all of these sources is this idea of taking responsibility for our thoughts and beliefs. You know, we've been talking about
harnessing this incredible power within.
Yeah.
But a big part of that seems to be becoming aware of the thoughts and beliefs that are maybe holding us back.
You know, we often operate on autopilot.
Yeah, we do.
Allowing our thoughts and beliefs to run unchecked. But all of these sources are really urging us to become more conscious creators of our reality.
To pay attention.
Pay attention to the words.
To the words we speak, the thoughts we think.
What stories we tell ourselves.
Because
all those inner patterns ultimately shape our experiences in the outer world.
They really do.
So if you want to create positive change in your life, you need to start by cultivating that positive change within yourself.
Weeding out the negative thought.
Planting seeds. Of positivity.
Positivity and empowerment.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's not always easy work.
No, it's not.
It takes effort. It takes discipline. It takes a willingness to really examine those limiting beliefs.
To really look at ourselves. Honestly.
But the rewards
the rewards are so worth it.
More than worth it.
Because to tap into that power within is to open yourself up
to a whole world.
To a world of possibility. It's about recognizing that infinite potential that resides within each of us.
It does. This deep dive has been truly eye-opening for me.
It's amazing how much we've covered.
I feel like I have a whole new set of tools and perspectives to
apply to your life.
Apply to my own life.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
It is.
The more we explore these ideas and put them into practice, the more we realize our own incredible potential.
It's a journey.
It's a journey of self-discovery. It unfolds one step at a time.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
Well said. So for those of you listening, we encourage you to kind of reflect on what resonated with you today.
What sparked your curiosity?
Yeah. What are some ideas you might want to experiment with? Remember what Haddock said. We exist in a storm of vibrations.
The
question is, what will you choose?
What will you choose to create with yours?
That is the question.
What a great way to end this deep dive.
I think so too.
So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
On this fascinating exploration into the power within.
Absolutely.